So this Saturday sees the first leg of the Copa Libertadores final. For the first time ever, it is a superclásico in the final. Boca Juniors against River Plate at La Bombonera, and Tim Vickery is on the line from Brazil to look forward to it. Evening, Tim.
Good evening, how you doing?
Would I be exaggerating things to say this is the biggest game in the history of Argentinian club football?
No, not at all. It is the biggest, and it's almost too big, and it's absolutely huge. And the tickets are exchanging, on the black market, are going for the price of a house, more or less. And whoever loses is never, ever going to hear the end of this. Never. I mean, in 50 years' time, they will still be laughed at and mocked in the streets because they lost the biggest clash in one of the biggest rivalries that there is in world football.
Two great names of world football. It's surprising that it's the first time they've ever met in the Copa Libertadores decider, and also that they've met so few times in the competition at all.
Yeah, I mean, for most of the history of the Libertadores, you couldn't have a final between clubs from the same country. It was kind of filtered through, so you had to meet in the earlier rounds. We had a couple of all-Brazil finals just over a decade ago. This is not only the first Boca River, it's the first all-Argentine final. And it's just a huge, huge occasion. It's changing everything. And usually the finals are Wednesday night. This time, with security considerations, both because of security of the game and because the original date for the second leg would pretty much coincide with a meeting of the G20, Donald Trump and all in Buenos Aires. For security reasons, both games have been moved to Saturday afternoon Argentina time, which I think is 8 p.m. Island time, which means that there's going to be an opportunity for more people all around the world, and especially I think in Europe because of the time difference, to follow what goes on. I would say it's one of those games like the old Doctor Who of my childhood. You might want to watch it behind the settee now and again. A mate of mine, a fanatic for Argentine football, has just flown down today. He'll be at both games, and he said to me, "I'm not expecting games. The games aren't going to be very good, but the atmosphere is going to be phenomenal." I think that at the moment, that's a kind of general consensus, that the tension is just going to be so great that it's, and I think especially the first leg, it's going to be tense, it's going to be tight. No one is going to want to make a mistake. So I think we can guarantee drama. We can certainly guarantee atmosphere. Whether we can guarantee quality, I think, is another matter.
That atmosphere, though, it's going to be pretty one-sided. There's not going to be any away fans in either game?
That's right, which is standard practice in Argentine football.
But there was talk that they might have actually changed it for this match initially.
Yeah, but in the end, I think security considerations won out. So, and also the fact that for the home side, it means you can sell more tickets because you don't have to have any separation between the two fans. It means that, and one of the beauties of this game is that they are so different in a way, that both of these clubs grew up in the working class docklands area of Buenos Aires. Boca Juniors have defiantly stayed put. River Plate have long since moved out to the snooty suburbs. So you get completely different atmospheres. On Boca, the area is called La Boca. It's colourful, shall we say, full of character, which may be a euphemism for not entirely safe all of the time. Right. It's cramped and it's claustrophobic. There's not a lot of space. You walk quickly. You avoid eye contact. And you can see there's no space from the football stadium. It's called La Bombonera, the chocolate box, for a reason. It just goes straight up, not for vertigo sufferers. And it means that those fans are close to the pitch and the atmosphere is extraordinary. River Plate, where we'll have the second leg in 3 weeks' time, is a different proposition, or just over 2 weeks' time, is a different proposition. River Plate, that they moved out to the suburbs, wide, leafy avenues. It's a huge bowl-like stadium. Some of the corridors are so wide in there, you could be in the United Nations building. And so the atmosphere that the fans create is also very different. It's equally insane, but just different, because architecture matters. So on the level of a symbol, if you like, Boca stand for the old traditional working class. You can also almost see the army of Perón. It's Perón's army jumping up and down there, whereas River Plate They call themselves the millionaires, and that they have a reputation for being a little bit more cerebral with their fans. If you actually look at the sociological surveys, there's almost no difference between Boca fans and River fans. But on the level of the symbol, it's very, very important, the separate identities that these clubs have.
So they won't get to meet inside the stadium, the two sets of supporters, but just how tense will it be around Buenos Aires for these couple of weeks with this game and with this final being on? Is it a rivalry that does boil over on a fairly regular basis?
Yeah, it does. I think we've already had a fan death because of this, and it's a national event because these are national teams with national support bases. Over half the population supports either Boca or River. So yeah, I think already one death has been reported. And Argentine football has a serious problem with fan violence, and these huge derby games they can generate much more heat than light. So hopefully at the end we'll be talking about football and atmosphere and not a death count.
Yeah, and Tim, if they're not letting away supporters in general into matches in Argentina, where are the issues cropping up? Is it around the stadium the days of the games?
No, it's all over. Can be all over. Can be hundreds of miles away from the stadium. And as I said, these are clubs with national support bases. So you can have River and Boca fans clashing hundreds of miles away from Buenos Aires. It's one of those things where sometimes wearing the wrong shirt at the wrong time can prove to be a very unfortunate decision. We
get to see Argentinian players in the Premier League every week, playing in the best leagues all over Europe. There seems to be a constant flow of talent to the top clubs in Europe from Argentina. Where does that leave the quality of Argentinian football right now?
Well, I think that there's an excellent illustration here, and you just had the big. It's not, to my mind, a derby game, but it is a rivalry game. Barcelona and Real Madrid. We had that a couple of weeks ago, and all 6 goals were scored by South Americans. The youngest of those South Americans, the one who left South America latest, was Arturo Vidal at the age of 20. All the others left as teenagers. Now, obviously, that means a hollowing out. There's no doubt about that. And the quality on this side of the Atlantic suffers as a consequence. In this particular year, both River and Boca have invested heavily. They've got deep squads. It may not be sustainable. And since then, during the course of the year, the Argentine currency has collapsed. And because a lot of the contracts are in dollar, that's a problem. So there could well be a fire sale at the end of the year. I could certainly see some European clubs swooping on some of the younger talent that we got available on both sides. But for the time being, for these 2 weeks, there is quality on both sides. Whether the occasion will be too tense for it to rise to the surface, we'll have to see. There's no away goals rule in operation in the final. Away goals rule is in operation in the previous rounds, not in the final, and that's another thing that could contribute to make the first game a little bit more tense, because there's no real onus on River Plate to go and get the away goal.
Their routes to the final then, River Plate beat the defending champions Gremio in the semi-final. Pretty controversial circumstances?
Very much so, yes. With VAR and with a late VAR penalty, which in the end, even Gremio accepted that it was a penalty. But it does show you how VAR changes the game. It was a shot deflected behind for a corner. Even River weren't appealing for a penalty. But then the VAR referee had spotted it. It was clearly blocked with an outstretched arm. I think one perhaps lesson here for world football is, with VAR in operation, defending very deep now carries extra risks, because other things are going to be spotted.
Accidents can happen.
Gremio were very unhappy with the first River Plate goal on that in that game, which was a header glanced in from a free kick. It seems, looking at it 300 times on video replays, it may have glanced off his arm as well. So they're saying, well, VAR worked against us, but it didn't work for us. I tend to the view that some of the people who've been pushing VAR have oversold it and sold the idea it was going to be a panacea and it was going to eliminate all possible problems. We've already seen that's not going to be the case. So River Plate kind of snuck into the final. That they were eliminated with 10 minutes to go and managed to pull that one round. Boca Juniors got in there more easily on aggregate against Palmeiras of Brazil. But if you look at the records going into this final, exactly the same: 6 wins, 5 draws, 1 defeat, which tells you There ain't no favourites in this one. There wouldn't be anyway, because previous form goes out of the goes out the window. The last time these two sides met was in a league game at Boca's ground 2 months ago, 23rd of September, and River won that one 2-0. However, I don't think Boca fielded a particularly good team on that occasion. I think it may well have been the last hurrah for Carlos Tevez, who started that game, hasn't been seen since in the Libertadores, hasn't even come off the bench. He may well have a role to play, he's a big occasion play, may well have a role to play in these two matches, but it's not going to be as a starter, I think. If he does get a run, it's going to be off the bench, and Boca have tweaked their side since then. So they will argue that 2-0 defeat on home ground less than 2 months ago was an accident, which isn't going to be repeated on Saturday.
How has Tevez taken his relegation to a bench role?
Well, it seems fair enough. I mean, he came back from a very, very unsuccessful spell in China, came back at the start of this year, and he really hasn't done it this year. He's lost his pace. And in the group stage of the Libertadores, Boca struggled a little bit, and they looked like a side where his presence was a hindrance. It was looked to those one of those sides kind of built around a star when the star isn't performing anymore. So he seems to have taken it well enough. And as I say, they've got quite a deep squad. And the fellow who's really fired into form up front is the centre forward Benedetto, who may well have been Argentina's World Cup centre forward, but he suffered a long-term injury towards the end of last year. Came back kind of August, really looked off the pace, wasn't playing well. And then in the semi-final, coming off the bench in both games, he just found his mojo again, and he was banging in fantastic goals. So that's a selection decision. Do you start with him on Saturday, or do you leave him on the bench and bring him on the second half? But if he is on the bench, as he has been, he clearly gets on before Tevez does.
And quality-wise then from River Plate, who are we looking out for?
Well, I'm not sure he's going to get a start, but the main creative force is the fellow who had such a great World Cup for Colombia, Juan Fernando Quintero, the left-footed playmaker. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he doesn't start, if they leave him on the bench. But when he comes on, he's not the world's greatest athlete, and he doesn't tend to last 90 minutes. But when he comes on, suddenly football is generated. From the start, I think there's another young Colombian, Santos Borré, the striker, who moves very well behind the defensive line. He's opening up space for those coming from behind. And one of those coming from behind is a young teenage midfielder who's not going to be around very long. And some of the big giants from Europe are already interested in him. Ezequiel Palacios, who's strong, dynamic midfielder, and he'll be one of those players who'll be trying to take advantage of the space that Santos Borré opens up. The
winners of this head in then to the World Club Championship. Is that in any ways relevant right now? Is it all just bragging rights?
No, well, that's because that's taken so seriously in South America, really seriously. Obviously, at the moment, it's overshadowed by who's going to win the Libertadores. But then you got your sights gunning on Real Madrid, and why not? If you can conquer Buenos Aires, today it's Buenos Aires, tomorrow the world. So that plays big. Although no one is thinking about that for the moment. And I think the worrying thing is the extent to which no one wants to lose. I was reading this from an old mate of mine, Sergio Levinsky. He's a veteran Argentine journalist. He's a Boca fan. And he's already tweeting, he's saying, look, because the second leg's at River Stadium. So he's saying, look, we Boca, if we win, we get to do the lap of honour. Boca get to do the lap of honour in River's Stadium. Now, that's the ultimate humiliation. And it's something that River will probably never have the chance to do, because from next year, we go to a one-off final on a neutral ground. So in order for River to have the chance to do a lap of honour at Boca Stadium, three things have to happen. Buenos Aires has to be chosen as the venue for the final. Boca's stadium then has to be chosen as the venue in Buenos Aires, and Boca and River have to qualify for the final again. So for the moment, the ball is on the penalty spot for Boca to do a lap of honour in front of none of their own fans at River Stadium. And if that happens, light the touch paper and retire to a safe distance.
I was just going to say, you can imagine what the atmosphere will be like as they stroll around the pitch. Maybe they'd be better off keeping it quite short, that lap of honour, I would imagine. What's your prediction then, Tim?
I'll tell you afterwards. I really haven't got one. Always make your predictions after the event anyway, because they tend to be more accurate that way. But I really, really don't have one. Because the big untold factor here is the effect that pressure is going to have on these players. This pressure is going to be absolutely insane. How is that going to affect the players? Who is going to be affected most? Who's going to suffer? Who is going to rise to the occasion? Don't know. Tell you afterwards.
All right, Tim Vickery, great stuff. We're looking forward to it. Saturday evening, 8 o'clock, perfect time in this part of the world for Boca Juniors against River Plate.